Hope everybody's having a good day today, enjoying all the speakers. I get to introduce our Congressman Jeff Denham. He represents the 19th District of California, the United States House of Representatives. His district covers part of Fresno, Madera, Mariposa, Tuolumne, and Stanislaus County. He was elected in November 2010 and will serve his first term in the 112th session of Congress. While in his first year of Congress, Congressman Denham will be serving as on the following committees: the chair of the subcommittee on economic development, public buildings, emergency management, subcommittee on railroads, pipeline, and hazardous material, natural resources committee, veterans affairs committee, and also assistant whip for the House Republican Conference. Republican Denham's public service career began with the U.S. Air Force, where he served for 16 years between active duty and reserve status. He fought in Operation Desert Storm, Operation Restore Hope in Iraq and Somalia, respectively. After graduating Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Representative Denham worked in the agriculture industry as an almond rancher and entrepreneur. He understands the critical importance of agricultural business in cultivating California's economy and maintaining employment. In his work as California State Senator from 2002 to 2010, Representative Denham focused on balancing runaway spending in California and protecting taxpayer dollars from wasteful state projects. He was proven and courageous in leadership in California Senate, where he gained renown for his refusal to vote on irresponsible budget proposals. First and foremost, Representative Denham is a family man. Jeff and Sonia Denham have been married for 17 years and have 2 beautiful children. In his new position as state congressman, Representative Denham will continue to focus on representing the long-term interests of California's agriculture business, finding a solution to the long struggle over water storage and conveyance, transportation interests in California, and fighting for the right and protection and benefits America's brave and heroic veterans deserve. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Congressman Jeff Denham.
Well, good morning. I've got quite a few topics I wanted to cover this morning. There's so much happening in our nation's capital. I'm going to try to go through them quick and leave plenty of time for questions, but I've been on the job for about a month and a half now, and it's been quite a wild ride. You know, just starting off, when you take over for a retiring congressman, there's about 3 months worth of lag time on everything from emails to letters to phone calls. And on day one, we were expected not only to have our 2 district offices open, but our D.C. office as well, with all systems up and running. It's been like drinking water through a fire hose. I mean, January was very, very busy, and then we had votes coming up right after that. I did want to just show you my voting card, because I believe that this isn't my voting card. This is your vote, and so I take it very serious. Every time I go into the House floor, we put this card into the backs of the chairs. There's about 20 different spots on the floor that we put this in, and you vote yes or no depending on what the issue is. But I wanted to just pass this around so you can see what I have every day. And that's your vote. I take it very serious that I am elected by you, and that is my responsibility, and so I just thought it was important to have you see that. We've got some critical things coming up. We're already dealing with many of them, this budget being the biggest. We have met as a freshman class. We are driving the issue very hard. We know that we're on probation, but we are willing to put our job on the line to address our national debt. So when we are discussing cuts, we're pushing it further and further because our national debt is so high. We just can't afford to let this go off to 20 years down the road and force our kids to go from a $50,000 to $60,000 price tag each to what's going to be about a $120,000 price tag here in the near future. So we all got together. We pushed for $100 billion in cuts. It was a very open process. It was much different than the last couple of years. We actually had debate on the floor. Anybody, any member could come to the floor with an amendment. And a number of the Democrats' amendments were incorporated into the overall bill. But our goal was to get to at least $100 billion, and we actually surpassed that. The $100 billion wasn't a number that was pulled out of the air. It was a number to get us back down to the 2008 levels, which we need to get much, much further than that. Right now we're dealing with a CR, which is the continuous resolution. The reason for that is in 2010, last year's budget was never passed. The appropriation was never completed, so we're operating off of basically a 2-year budget, and on Friday we run out of funding. So unless we come to an agreement on what that CR looks like, we will basically see a government shutdown start on Friday. So we're going back on Monday. Our bill went over to the Senate. We expect to have another bill come back. We may have to do a short-term CR to get us through this, but ultimately we're going to continue to negotiate and negotiate for more cuts than what we've seen already today. The President just came out with his 2012 budget, which I believe spends too much, taxes too much, and borrows too much. We can't afford it. So when he's talking about a freeze, that's a freeze on the 84% increase of spending that we saw over the last 2 years. We couldn't afford the budget that we passed 2 years ago, let alone freeze in those higher levels of spending. So we're working with the President to cut that back drastically. You know, one of the things that you hear a lot in the media right now is Republicans are afraid to tackle entitlements. Couldn't be further from the truth. The issue right now today, though, is making sure that we don't shut down government on Friday, and that when the debt ceiling comes in April, that we don't shut down government there either. So we are working to come up with a number of new proposals to actually get our budget back in line, but ultimately we're going to have to take on entitlements as well. The discretionary spending that we deal with right now, out of the $3.5 trillion budget, the discretionary spending is $666 billion, of which 5 months of that is already out. So when we're taking $100 billion out of the discretionary spending, we're cutting about a fourth of the discretionary spending that we have today. So there are a lot of cuts in there I don't like. There are a lot of cuts in there I would expect you not to like. But every day that I go to the floor, I take a look at the picture of my kids, and I don't want to pass on that debt. I mean, we are the first generation that, you know, as I'm out there campaigning, this is the first time where, you know, parents and grandparents are telling me that they don't expect to leave this this country in a better place than when they had it left to them. So I'm fighting to change that. I think that we've got a real opportunity here the next 2 years, and this budget is the most appropriate place to deal with that. You know, the budget is certainly the biggest issue, the hottest topic right now, but here locally, water continues to be the biggest issue. We have to address our water crisis, as the President talks about an unemployment rate that continues to improve and that the recession is over. He's obviously not looking at our community, where unemployment continues to go up. Recently, with the larger rainfalls, even though January was tough, the larger rainfalls that we've seen this year, the federal government's still only saying that we get a 50% water allocation. Well, that's our water, and I take that very serious. You have a contract, you have an agreement with the government, you expect the government to fulfill that agreement 100%. And so I've asked for the committees that deal with water, and was fortunate enough to get on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which not only deals with our highway reauthorization bill and our aviation reauthorization bill, railroads, high-speed rail, I'm going to get to that one in a minute, but also deals with water conveyance. If we're going to get more water storage, if we're going to get more water conveyance to be able to move our water throughout our farms, it's going to go through the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Now, I know a lot of those projects are long-term, but we've got to start them now. The short-term issue is dealing with the Endangered Species Act and some of the environmental regulation that has been proposed federally. And that goes through the Resources Committee. So I'm proud to be on the Resources Committee as well. We are going to be holding hearings not only in D.C., but I've asked the chair of the Resources Committee to actually come here, not hold an informational hearing or a gathering session. I want to hear bills right here today. I want to hear the bills that will be going through the committee, have the entire committee here, and rather than facing bureaucrats in D.C., I want them to face the local farmers and let them know why the water's being turned off and why these different environmental laws are passed, and what is so important about the Delta smelt versus the livelihood of our community. So we are planning that late March, early April. We're going to get you a date on that once we have it confirmed, but that's going to be held right here locally. On the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, we also deal with rail. That has been obviously a huge issue, not only here locally, but nationally, with a number of different states that have finally said, enough is enough, we don't want it in our state. And so you see California continuing to try to do a money grab for our high-speed rail. My concern is very simple. If it's not on time, if it's not on budget, and if it's not off of our ag land, then we don't need it. And it's a very strong position that I just believe you've got to have a plan. It's got to add up. When this was sold to the voters of our state, this plan was supposed to include private investment. We have yet to see any private investor, not only that's willing to come up with the upfront money on the infrastructure itself, but I believe more importantly, the ongoing money so that this doesn't become an annual subsidy like Amtrak. We can't afford the $1 billion that we subsidize Amtrak. We certainly can't afford a much bigger subsidy that would cost us on this high-speed rail. I want to see what the exact plan is. You know, this is a project that was started at $33 billion. That's what it was sold to the voters. Voters said, sure, we believe in paying for the asset part of this, and the $9.95 billion was supposed to be a third, but the other two-thirds has yet to be defined. And now it's gone from a $33 billion project to a $65 billion project with no end in sight. So I don't want to have my name on the bridge or on the train to nowhere. I want to make sure that we have a full plan before you actually put the overall project in place. And I want to make sure that it also, all of the jobs that are being talked about, I want to make sure that we're not creating jobs on high-speed rail. At the same time, we are cutting the jobs in agriculture because we've divided properties that can no longer be farmed, because you haven't been able to get the water from one side of your property to another. There are a number of issues if you start arbitrarily going over our ag land that could cost us jobs at the same time. So I've been very vocal on high-speed rail. It is one of the cuts in the CR. We wanted to completely defund it until we have a full plan. We also have a bill that would take the immediate money and transfer that to Highway 99. Whether we get a bullet train or not, we still have to fix Highway 99. We've got to get our goods movement going. We've got to be able to get our farm products to market. And right now we've got more commuters that are on Highway 99 than we're ever planning. So there's too much competition between the trucks and the commuters. We've got to get to 6 lanes so that we can get goods moving throughout the entire valley. So the plan right now is to move the high-speed rail money, the initial piece, to Highway 99 so we can get jobs started today. I just believe that we can have a valley consensus on getting that done, so that not only does the money go to good use, but we get those jobs created quickly. Just a couple other quick issues I wanted to touch on. On the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I am a chair. I'm one of the few freshmen that was able to get a chairmanship. I chair the Committee on Economic Development, FEMA, all of our emergencies that happen nationwide, as well as our public buildings. We have millions of buildings across the nation. We continue to buy more and more land. One of the things that I worked on as a state senator was actually coming to a bipartisan agreement on how we deal with all of our properties as a state, getting them through one agency so that we actually have harnessing our buying power and have more accountability, and then force justification so we actually sell off the stuff that we don't need. We still own a lot of stuff as a state that we should have sold a long time ago. San Quentin is a facility that is over 100 years old, the most expensive prison in the entire nation to run. The LA Coliseum and Sports Arena, great things for LA, but let LA redevelop those areas and let them reap the economic development and the higher tax dollars that would come with that. We shouldn't be subsidizing that as a state. Half a dozen golf courses around the state. There are a lot of things that we just shouldn't own that we need to get rid of. And now looking at the federal properties, we have a number of federal properties that just sit. We just held our first hearing in an old post office that is about a block and a half from the White House. We spend $6 million a year just in ongoing costs, maintenance, and such, we should be receiving hundreds of millions either in lease or sale of that property as well as many others. So I believe that we should be, especially right now, selling off a lot of the things that we don't need, combining agencies into one building rather than being in several different spots around D.C. or even around the country. And one of the things that we're now looking at is the wildlands issue in the Natural Resources Committee as well. That's up for a hearing on Tuesday. But again, federal government buying a lot more land that we can't afford, that we can't maintain, and taking it out of either out of production or away from farmers that may have wanted to graze on the property. Another farm issue that is coming up very quickly is the Farm Bill. That will be up for renegotiation, and we did get money in there for specialty crops. I want to make sure that as the Farm Bill moves forward that we have money for research and marketing. But I know that the hot debate is really going to be about subsidies and whether or not we continue to subsidize a number of the different commodities, and what does that do for all of the other commodities associated with it. So if you have a higher subsidy for corn, for example, how does that affect our poultry industry and cattle and dairy industries? So we are weighing that out at the same time looking at all of our different trade agreements which are up. We have several up right now. We expect to have more coming up in the next 2 years, and I want to see more of a free market chance. I know when America ingenuity, we compete with others, we win. So rather than subsidizing, I want to see the free market have its will. With that, I know I can keep going on for quite some time. There's certainly a lot of exciting things that are happening, but let me open it up for questions and hear from you about either what I should be hearing, what I should be taking back to D.C., or certainly just questions that you may have for me on what's happening. We have, perfect, microphone? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Congressman Denham, is there any way that the ag community can have the EPA kind of reform that Endangered Species Act, somehow adjust it so it's not, so people are really more important than fish?
Yes, I think you're going to see a number of different bills come out of the Resources Committee specifically just dealing with that. There's one proposal to actually just count the number of fish that come through our hatcheries. If you counted the Delta smelt, for example, what's in our hatcheries right now today, it would not be on the list, but yet we don't count those even though we're spending money to basically grow this species. There's also a number of different bills just actually getting the endangered species back to what it was. The Endangered Species Act started off as something that had just a few different animals, and now it's expanded to, whether we're talking about a little fish or a number of different bugs that are out there that, it's just Mother Nature playing its will. So there will be a huge effort to get the endangered species back to what it once was.
On a similar topic, what about defunding of the San Joaquin River restoration until we can get water recirculation to replace the water that's being taken?
We're actually, that is a coalition here that we have locally with our Congress members, Devin Nunes, myself, and Kevin McCarthy are working on. We hope to have the Democrat members signing on to this as well. But again, we believe that we need to be holding back that money until we actually have a firm system in place. Back here?
Yeah, Congressman, I apologize, I have a bad cold. That's from the trying to deal with government processes. But my question first, I want to thank you for your firmness on the budget and the government taking control of its outrageous spending in all levels. We as a country can't keep going at the trillions we're putting our great-great-grandchildren through, and many of those people will never see the dream of owning a home or doing those things. But the question I have on the Farm Bill that has caused tremendous damage to our dairy industry is the cost of feed. corn. Our Secretary of Agriculture supports ethanol, but he doesn't face the facts that ethanol prices of what the corn is costing when these people develop ethanol sends the price to the farm, to the dairyman for huge increases, plus the consumer products that we make corn out of. And I would hope that the committee can address that issue and stop what has been going on in many of our dairies right now are in serious trouble, especially in the San Joaquin Valley and even other parts of California. So I would hope that you can try to see if we can handle that one as well, because our secretary has missed the boat. I'm disappointed that he has not addressed this issue. We have brought it up. And it just seems to forget that just because ethanol is great for clean air and alternative fuels, you've now devastating the food in the food chain. So that's one of the things that I would hope that maybe you can help us with and try to get that under control. But again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a champion on the high-speed rail. I concur, and so does all of the communities. Take that money and put it onto the 99, where we have so many needs, and even helping of the I-5 because of the damage there from the trucks. And the trucks are important to our country, to this valley and across. But thank you for all that support you have done and holding tough on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. One bill that we did just see on ethanol, it was automatically supposed to go to 15%. We reduced that back down to 10%, which should send a message to the entire market, and we would hope that that would at least stabilize corn prices, if not have them drop.
I just had one quick comment. Changing the Environmental Species Act with one sentence is economic consequences must be considered. That would solve a lot of the problem. I have a question. It seems like the water problem is conveyance. How to get the water through the delta. Mm-hmm. Seems like when the Central Valley Project was envisioned, there should have been a better provision, peripheral canal, whatever. But anyway, why can't the Central Valley Project now carry through on the peripheral canal?
I think there's going to be a push from the state side to do a type of peripheral canal. My guess is the ultimate project that we're going to see is a more expensive underground pipeline, but it will help to stabilize the delta. I mean, I think that that's the biggest issue. I mean, obviously, a big part of Northern California farmers are just concerned about, hey, it's our water. We want to make sure that we've always got our availability so they don't end up like us. So there is going to be that fight, but there is a genuine concern that if you have too much overdrafting on the delta, that you'll have saltwater intrusion that comes back, especially with the delicate situation that we have with most of our levees up there being old and being eroded from underneath. So I think that a pipeline would make sense. The question is going to be at what cost and how do we actually get it funded. So I do expect that there will be at some point a state-federal partnership on it that would go through the T&I committee, and I'm going to be working on that. We have to have it. We have to have a solution, a long-term solution.
Okay, I'd like to echo Mr. Cunha's opinion. Stick with the Highway 99. I really support that. I have two questions. I'll try to be real quick about it. One is, it's up to us as individual citizens to stay informed, but what is the effective way? How do we support you when we know that you're doing it? Do we just write you a letter? Do we write Bonner? Where's the best expenditure of our industry, of our energy? And this other question is it's not a gotcha. I'm even a little hesitant to ask, but I'm going to ask it because I don't want to become a slave to political correctness, but this is a Judeo-Christian society we live in, a country we're founded on, and we have to have moral values for it to operate. And my question I've been asking every politician I get the chance from now on, who do you fear more, God or man, and why?
Definitely God. I've got a strong faith for me and my family, and I'm concerned that our government continues to try to take God out of government. That's our principles. Our country was founded on it. I would tell you one of the surprises that I had was walking in that first day of the House, being able to go up to the Speaker's chair and sit in that chair and look at the the entire building. I mean, it's certainly, it's an enlightening experience, but one thing that caught my eye that I'd never seen before is above the speaker it says, "In God We Trust." You don't see it on the State of the Union. The president is up there, but the cameras don't pan on it. It is right above his head in huge letters. I mean, that is a constant reminder of every bill that comes up, every day when we come in and not only do the pledge, but do the prayer on the House floor, that is part of our government, it's part of our country, and I think every member needs to not only understand that, but realize that on a daily basis. Thank you. My concern right now is that the president does not have the will to take on one more issue and does not want to take this on until after the election cycle. We can't wait. Right now with the H-2A program, with us shutting down the borders, which we have to do. We have to secure our borders. We have to stop a lot of the drug trafficking and the crime that is happening along our border. But we have to make sure that we have a full inclusive immigration policy. And my fear is, since the president is punting on the issue until after the election, that it becomes a huge impact to our agriculture industry here locally. It's something we're going to drive, but I am concerned that the president doesn't want to take that one more issue on. All right. Well, thanks for having me this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to all of you.